8-1, and now finally the first blemish on the Eagles' record. And, well, the season's over. The wings have been clipped. Jonathan Gannon has been fired. Jalen Hurts has been cut. And the Dallas Cowboys are Super Bowl champions. That last line there should be the clear indicator that I'm joking. I am a clown after all. As you can see, I will get to that, explain why I'm a clown today yet again in just a minute. Welcome to the first Birds IQ, the first post-loss Birds IQ of the season, hopefully the first of very few for my sake. I'm Kyle Quinn, Tom Kelly, producing the program today, along with the clown himself, Bozo, the Birds IQ clown. Well, as I said, it's been so long since I've done one of these shows, so I almost had no idea where to even begin. I guess I should say I'm nowhere near as concerned as everybody else seems to be, and I'll explain why, and you guys can let me know what your concern level is. Give me your thoughts on that down below in the comments, how you feel, your concern level. I should say, I was thinking this sort of Tuesday and, the days after picking up pieces of the loss. This is probably the most normal the Eagles season has felt all year so far. And I say that sort of jokingly, but at the same time, I really do feel that way because not having to talk about a loss for the first 9 weeks of a football season, of an Eagles season, was just so weird, and it was just such unfamiliar territory. I just had I had no idea how to approach that, and going through 9 weeks without having to talk about a loss is just really weird. I was not expecting to have to do that. So now, and I think especially with the results of some of the other games this week, there were some really good games, the Vikings and Bills, and just some of the other games that went on during the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games at least. We're sort of like, all right, the NFL season's really back, and then the Eagles lost, and you're like, all right, now we're really back. Like, everyone's bitching, everyone's freaking out, people want everybody fired, and this, that, the other. So it really does now feel like a true Eagles season. So there's a lot of narrative surrounding the Eagles right now and the loss, and whether they're doomed or not for the rest of the season. And we'll play some true-false about some of the narratives surrounding the Eagles' first loss there. We do have a few signings to get to over the past few days because we clearly were sick of getting bullied around against Washington. I'll explain those just a little bit. Did Washington give the NFL the blueprint to beat the Eagles? That'll be a part of our true-false. So let you know what I think there. Later in the show, we'll have the if we have time to do this, I hope we do. I want to poke a few teams with a stick, so to speak, around the league. See if they're still breathing, or if not, we'll go right on ahead and pronounce them dead. Of course, we'll dive into the division happenings. We have a little bit of a conundrum as it pertains to who Eagles fans should be rooting for this week on Sunday. A pretty huge game as it pertains to NFC standings, and of course, the Eagles and the rest of their season. So I'll tell you why I'm wearing this, of course, as part of the worst take of the week. Don't worry. Our dumbass of the day features two teams who just refuse to win a game on Sunday, and I'll tell you who that is later on, of course. We'll jump into this matchup with Indianapolis, Jeff Saturday's Indianapolis Colts, as well as some of the injuries, of course, that have now popped up for the Eagles and in a bit of a wave, how that might affect us moving forward. So now, obviously, we have a lot to get into about this game, and I want to do it in this format here. So let's go through some of the narratives that came out of this game, and I'm going to try and convince you or confirm and debunk some of these narratives that I think that I've been hearing people talk about all week long. And the first one, and this is the lamest one of all of them, is that the officials are the main reason that the Eagles lost the game. And you can't blame the refs. Sirianni, I think, said it best in his post-game press conference. You create your own luck, right? You only rely on luck when you're not good enough to take matters into your own hands, right? I mean, but I do have to say, and let this be the portion of the program where I just vent and get this all out. I'm not saying this is the reason why we lost the game, but I do have to rip the officials. Scott Halverson and Alex Kemp, I believe, were the guys on staff there, and they were just horrendous. I mean, you had the CJ Gardner-Johnson hit out of bounds where, that was ticky-tack, little bang-bang, dicey, whatever. Still, I think a bad call at the end of the day. And then at the end of the game where they just freaking, oh my God, they totally screwed us with the Goddard face mask non-call, which kept the fumble on the board, which shouldn't have been because it was a face mask. And now, unfortunately, you can't review penalties when you're reviewing whether or not it's a turnover. That's something, and if you can bait a guy like Brandon Graham, or you can bait somebody into hitting you after the whistle, or in this case, at the referee's discretion, then yeah, I mean, and it worked, right? I mean, Brandon Graham, a veteran player, mind you, made a rookie mistake or a not veteran mistake. But I will say, I do think it's bogus that if the official can't react to the play in time to blow his own whistle, then he shouldn't expect the player that's diving headfirst toward the quarterback to be able to react in time to physically pull himself up. So I don't know. This is just me bitching, and there's nothing that's going to be able to be done about it. And let's let bygones be bygones, right? That's not the reason that we lost the game. They were bad, though. They were really, really bad. But there are plenty of other reasons why the Eagles lost this game. And really, I think this was more of a fluky game than anything, as opposed to the Eagles being outclassed, outcoached, dominated in any way, shape, or form. So with that, let's talk about number 2. True or false? Gannon's run defense got gashed. And I'm saying this is false, too. I mean, honestly, I didn't think the defense was horrendous yesterday. I mean, here's the thing. Washington was running the ball like at a ridiculous clip, like 49 times I think they ended up running the ball total. And with that, they're able to sustain drives, which is obviously a killer for your defense. Keeps them on the field, keeps your offense off the field, keeps them tired. They only averaged 3.1 yards per carry on the ground. But at the end of the day, that's really all they needed because they were getting 3-4 yards on first down, 3-4 yards on second down, and then all of a sudden it's third down, and they just need 1 or 2 yards. So they're getting the 1 or 2 yards. That is a successful play, successful run play, even if they're only getting 1 or 2 yards because they're getting the first down. But 3.1 yards on the ground isn't getting gashed, right? They weren't allowing a bunch of 10-yard carries. I do think the biggest issue was third downs, and not only those short third downs, but when we did finally have opportunities to take Washington's offense off the field on big and third and longs, the secondary came up small. Darius Slay specifically, he was getting burnt all up and down the field by Terry McLaurin. So I think a bigger issue was really just inopportune blown coverages by the secondary on long third downs. And then, of course, the short third downs, 1 or 2 yards. I mean, got to be better on first and second down, of course. But they did come out and adjust in the second half. They only allowed 6 points total in the second half. Gave our offense plenty of opportunities. CJ Gardner-Johnson had to pick the interception. And 3 of those 6 points came directly off of the non-face mask fumble by Dallas Goedert. So really the 3 points that shouldn't have happened. The defense, I think if you really want to give them credit for the points that they allowed, by their own merit, I think it would just be 3 points because the other 3, like I said, were completely, they shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. But like I said, Washington was able to sustain drives, and that's something we're gonna have to fix, right? So I just don't see that it was the biggest issue or the main reason why they lost, or Jonathan Gannon getting gashed. I think that's kind of a little bit of a misconception. So, number 3, true or false, Jalen Hurts had a bad game. And look, I don't think Jalen Hurts was great, but he was definitely good. And he was 100% good enough to win. I mean, there's probably one or two plays that he probably wishes he had back. I would say the late sack that he took on the second to last, or I guess the third to last year count, whatever that BS was at the very end. I don't. The late sack that he took, the second to last drive was not a good one. He probably should try to, step up in the pocket the other way or, keep his eyes on the field. He just tried to take off. It wasn't a very good play. I don't know if it was a bad play call or if it was more on him, but probably a play that he wants back. And then, of course, there's the interception, even though it was in A.J. Brown's hands. I mean, it was thrown in the double coverage, probably not the best decision, but these are decisions that he's been making all season where we've been praising him for trusting his wide receiver in A.J. Brown, and I think I would trust him to make that throw 10 times out of 10, especially considering that it did land right in A.J. Brown's hands, just bounced out, ended up being an interception. I think all three of Jalen Hurts' interceptions this season have bounced out of one of their players' hands, so impressive. Hurts been able to take care of the ball that way. But yeah, I mean, when he's trusting his receivers like that, and that's sort of that's something that you're going to give and take. He's throwing out 50-50 balls, and they're called 50-50 balls for a reason. It's because 50% chance the receiver gets it, 50% chance the other guy got it. It was a beautifully thrown ball right in the dude's hands. He couldn't have walked out and handed it to him better than he threw it. And I mean, the defender just made a good play. Ball bouncing off of A.J. Brown's hand. So, and then, of course, they were driving down the field when the Goddard face mask happened in the fumble. And then, of course, he put the go-ahead touchdown in Quez Watkins' hands, and we know how that ended. He ended up getting back up. St. Juice ran over and knocked the ball out of his hands. So, Jalen Hurts definitely did enough to put the team in position to win. They were only one score away from winning, despite what the final score says. I think Jalen Hurts had them right there. Like I said, he gave him a go-ahead touchdown. It was turnovers really that killed the offense. I don't think the offense got exposed. I think that's another false narrative versus Washington. I think the offense was just fine. They weren't on the field long enough, especially with how well Washington was executing on offense. And then turnovers. That finally turned on us, right? I think we were like plus 18 turnover differential going into this week, and all of a sudden we turned it over, I think, 3-4 times to their one or two. So lost the turnover battle, and and in a one-score game, and you lose the turnover battle, that's a pretty decent explanation as to why you're going to lose. And we might have scored 3 points if it wasn't for turnovers. I think there's 3 drives, like I said, that were ultimately stalled by just, either bogus penalty or receiver dropping the ball or receiver fumbling the ball. And then, of course, there was another drive, I think, where Kenny Gainwell just flat out dropped a pass where he was probably going to scoot for a good 10 yards. He had some open space there. So just some bad, shooting yourself in the foot. And we've said this all season that when the Eagles finally do lose a game, it's probably not going to be another team beating them because the Eagles, are very talented, very well coached, and if they're playing really well, then they're nearly unbeatable. It's going to be the Eagles beating themselves, and that's exactly what we saw, I think, right there. So I'm not really worried about the offense at all. One thing that I am worried about, and I think this narrative is true, is that the special teams needs to be addressed immediately. I mean, like today, tomorrow, whatever you got to do. I mean, if you got to fire Michael Clay, so be it. If you got to put someone else back there, Devontae Smith, I don't know if I want to do that, risk him, especially with the A.J. Brown potential ankle thing we got going on here. But, man, Britton Covey is not working out, and neither is freaking Aaron Siposs. I mean, the field position game that the Eagles are playing right now is abysmal. I have no faith that we're going to put our offense in the best situation to drive down the field and from a good starting point. I have no faith from the other side that the punt team is going to be able to pin the opposing team deep. I mean, if you need Aaron Siposs to kick a short kick, he's just going to blast it out of the back of the end zone. And if you need to get a touchback, he's going to freaking shank it like 25 yards off to the right. So he's just been brutal. The special teams in general has been brutal. That's something that I really do think these changers is going to bite him in the ass. So, and then finally, I think this is a false narrative as well, and everyone's been saying this all week. So Washington provided a blueprint for how to beat the Eagles, and we should be concerned. It's not true because Houston provided it, if you really want to get technical. Washington executed it properly. And here's the thing, and part of why I'm not worried. The run the ball strategy works when you're not already playing from behind, right? The reason that the teams haven't been able to do that on the Eagles the first 8 weeks or 9 weeks was because we jumped out ahead. And it also only works when you execute it as perfectly as Washington did. I mean, they had a couple hiccups with the turnovers or whatever, but other than that, I mean, they were playing mistake-free for the most part, not really too many penalties, like holding penalties, killer penalties that would knock them back 10 yards, start them in those 2nd and 20 situations where it puts them in a long third down enough. It wasn't happening enough throughout the game. So Washington, I thought, put a game plan together. It was the right game plan, obviously, and they executed it properly. But as I've been saying, this is, I think, a trade that defensive coordinators are just willing to take. I mean, look, this is a passing league now in the NFL, and defenses are now gearing up more to stop the pass. And we know one thing about the NFL is that it's kind of cyclical, is that teams start to see what other teams are defending against, and then they subvert and go the other way. So now you're starting to see teams. It's been a rushing year. A lot of teams go like pounding the rock, and it's because there's a lot of teams that are just out there built to stop the pass. So the blueprint argument for me is it's really all about how the Eagles are going to adjust, right? If the Eagles were one-dimensional, sort of like they were last season, you stop the run, you pretty much stop the Eagles' offense, right? This year, we're just too multi-dimensional for there to be that sort of formula, right? Like, when the Colts beat the Chiefs earlier this year, did the Colts expose the Chiefs? No, very clearly not. I mean, the Chiefs turned right around and they smoked the Bucs and put up like 42 points the very next week. I mean, these things happen. Losses happen, right? Not everybody needs to panic and say, oh, this is, now all of a sudden every team's just going to copy what Commanders did and beat us. No, like, you have to remember, the Eagles are a really, really good team, and they have the ability to beat you in multiple ways. So the game plan for Washington's only worked because they executed everything perfectly, minimal penalties, ready to convert in third downs, and we still should have won the game. If it was a one-score game, and we were right there within winning that game, and that was with Washington doing everything pretty much perfectly. Look, I do understand the concerns with the run game, and especially considering the gauntlet of rushing teams coming up on schedule. The Giants, the Packers, the Titans, the Colts, all teams that, pretty much the only way they can move the ball is by running the football. And they're pretty good. They're better than Washington is at running the football. They're in consecutive games. They're in rapid fashion. So I get it. There's injuries, sure. But right now, guys, we're still the number one seed. It's only one loss. And by the way, speaking of that, all of a sudden, you look at everybody's power rankings, and you got Minnesota number one, ahead of the Eagles. We absolutely freaking stomped earlier this year, by the way. And, of course, it's week 2, primetime Kirk Cousins. I don't care. We played them head-to-head, and we beat their ass. And if we have to catch them again in the playoffs and our records are tied, we get the higher seed, and we get home field advantage again. So you have to take that into consideration. The Eagles playing at home, I think, is a much better home field advantage than the Vikings being able to play at home as well. So whatever, just disrespect out of the power rankings already. People are just waiting for the Eagles to lose a game so they can drop a bunch in the power rankings. I think it's BS. But injuries aside, because I will get to them, if I had to quantify what my concern level is for the rest of the season out of a 10, I would say I'm at just a 3. I mean, look, you lose to the Colts, all of a sudden you're at a 10 because you can't go lose to the Colts. TK, my producer here today, without really trying to bring up the injuries, and I guess that might be tough because the Goddard one is a huge one. If you were just to raise your concern, what would be your concern level out of 10, just based on what you saw in the Washington game on Monday? Out of 10.
4.
A 4? Yeah. I mean, right? Like
there's mild concern, but in the same sense, so some recent signings, which I know you're going to get into, will help.
Yeah.
But even Houston showed the blueprint, but I mean, now there's a blueprint, you have to adjust.
Yeah, right. And I think the Eagles have been very clear in one with the signings that you mentioned, Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, that the Eagles are very clearly like, okay, there is a personnel problem. Looking at you, Howie. I'll take a shot. Clearly, he didn't have a backup with Jordan Davis. There's really no other guys like Jordan Davis on this roster to be able to
God, Matty B's right.
Be space eaters and clog up the middle. And Matty B's right. Fire Howie.
Fire Howie.
He screwed up. No, he did. But I mean, look, that was a mistake when he built this roster. But Jonathan Gannon went up on the podium. He was like, "No, that's an issue, right? Like, it's not like the old days where everyone's like, no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. That's fine. We'll get it fixed. We'll get it fixed." Jonathan Gannon's like, "No, that's an issue. We're gonna have to get that fixed." And then Howie turned around and pretty much did the same exact thing. Thank you guys. I know I look great. Now, speaking of those injuries, I'll do a little injury concern-o-meter here. And I'll say 1 is not a concern, 2 somewhat a concern, 3 very concerned. And I'll start with A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown sort of was gimpy early in the game. He rolled up his ankle a little bit, only had 4 targets the rest of the way. One of them, I think, was the deep dropped pass that turned into an interception. He says he's fine. He's all smiles. I actually heard that he was taking reps with the punt team, as in returning punts, along with Devontae Smith today in practice. So he was limited, but he says he's fine. I believe him. I'm giving that a 1. I don't think that's a concern at all. But you start to see him hobbled a little bit next week, and he's not getting his target share. Then maybe that amps up a little bit to just a 2. So A.J. Brown right now, not overly concerned about him. Avonte Maddox, I would say, is at a 2 right now. And it's only at a 2 because you have the soldiers, you have the horses on the other end of the field, or the other ends of the field with Bradbury, Slay, and Gardner Johnson to, I think, at least be able to hold up for the 4 weeks that they're projecting Avonte Maddox to be out. I hope it's just 4 weeks and it's not any longer. But Avonte Maddox right now, just a 2. Hopefully he comes off the injured reserve and we can just, shoo him right back into that lineup. I think, Maddox has sort of been underrated just because he's a slot corner, but he's pretty damn good back there. And they definitely did miss him this week. Josiah Scott was not very good. So, and then finally, this one's a major one. This one I'm very concerned about, and it's a Dallas Goedert one, and it's because Dallas Goedert has become an elite tight end. The dude's a monster, Dallas Goedert. Every single time he catches the ball, it's rare for me to ever see him like on the ground. I mean, he catches the ball, and the play usually just ends up with 4 or 5 guys just wrapped around him, and he's standing up, like eventually just shoved out of bounds. I mean, you don't take Dallas Goedert down. He just bounces off dudes. And man, I mean, him and Hurts were really starting to develop a connection. He takes a lot of pressure off Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Quez and all the other guys. And I mean, he's a killer blocker. Dallas Goedert has really solidified himself into top 3, I think even maybe top 2 tight end status in all of football right now. I mean, the dude is a beast. 4 to 6 weeks, they say. But, man, Eagles tend to be a little cautious with injuries, and Dallas Goedert's a guy who has kind of a history of being banged up. So that could go the full 6 weeks, maybe even more. Who knows? I really hope not. But they're saying extended time, not a season ender, which is good. We really are going to need him back. But, man, filling that void is not going to be easy. I mean, Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra, Stoll's okay. Calcaterra is really young. He's a 6th-round pick, but apparently was a pretty good pass catcher in Oklahoma. I know he's an SMU transfer, so I don't really know too much about Grant Calcaterra. I guess we're going to have to find out, and then maybe you elevate Tyree Jackson. But look, I mean, replacing Dallas Goedert's production is not going to be doable with, just 2 guys, right? You're going to need it's going to be a whole team effort. It's going to have to be Jalen Hurts. It's going to have to be A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles. The running backs are going to have to maybe be able to catch some passes out of the backfield a little bit better than they have been. So, and look, Jalen Hurts is in MVP conversations for a reason, right? And here's where he's going to earn his big bucks. If the offense is really humming because of Jalen Hurts and not just because all of a sudden Jalen Hurts is surrounded by all these weapons, he's being propped up by all of them. If he's going to go earn that $40 million contract, he's got to at least be able to pick up the slack of losing Dallas Goedert for a few weeks, right? You do still have the weapons out there. You have Devontae Smith. You have A.J. Brown. So, Jalen Hurts, if he's the guy, when the Bengals lost Jamar Chase, you're looking at them and you're like, well, they have Joe Burrow, so they can overcome that, right? We should be looking at this the same way with Jalen Hurts, right? Run defense has issues. Well, okay, our offense is going to have to pick up that slack until they get it figured out. Dallas Goedert's down. All right, well, Jalen Hurts, the rest of the guys, they're going to have to pick up that slack, and they're going to have to figure it out. And I have full confidence that they will be able to. So that's that. I got something on the rest of the league in just a minute. We can have fun with that. First, though, let's talk about things that directly affect the Eagles from around the league. And we'll start with the Saints losing to the Steelers this week, putting our pick at number 4. 4th overall pick. How about that? The number 1 seed with the 4th overall pick. It's a beautiful thing. It was announced today that Andy Dalton will remain the starting quarterback in New Orleans. Now, when he was switched to the starting quarterback role, I was like, you know what? That might actually be a good thing, New Orleans. It wasn't. That's not why I'm wearing this clown mask. That's for another reason. Explain that. Don't worry. Stay tuned. But Andy Dalton's been just abysmal. And up next for the Saints, they're going to have the Niners in San Francisco. And I think 3-7 is going to turn into 3-8 real quick. Stocked up on that draft pick. Now, I do remember last season with the Miami Dolphins thing, and Miami they started off horribly. They were like 1-7 or something like that. And, I mean, I think they won out or something. I mean, it was something crazy like that. But I don't think we'll have another one of those situations on our hand. I think the Saints are bad and will remain bad. And we're going to have a nice, juicy pick, man. Nice, juicy pick from the Saints. Can't wait. Hope they get an edge rusher. Somebody else in the D-line. Looks like probably what they're going to do. Anyway, that's the Saints. And then in our division, those New York Giants, they just don't stop winning. This time against the Houston Texans, who everyone just seems to beat, by the way. 24-16. Saquon Barkley, another great day. He's been vintage Saquon Barkley this season, which is a little bit scary, especially when they're on the docket in a couple weeks. Giants now 7-2. Now just a game back from the Eagles. TK, do you think the Giants and not the Cowboys are the team to worry about? Because the Giants are in second place, the Cowboys in third. Do you still think it's the Cowboys?
I think it's pretty much equal now.
Really?
Yeah, because Dallas is still an issue.
Well, Dallas's defense has been struggling lately.
But I mean, with the Giants, I mean, you have to go. You almost have to go Giants, but I feel they're both. Even though we have a 1-up right now. Yeah, I don't know.
Just because the Giants are 7-2, I mean, you have to at least acknowledge that they're there, right? And they're on the schedule twice more the rest of the season. So
I feel like all the fans haven't wanted to turn around to look behind their back to see the Giants.
Well, they haven't. They haven't at all. And excuse me for taking the clown nose off just a second. I will put it back on. Sorry, everybody. Now I forget what I was going to say. The Giants with 7-2 are, when they have 2 games and the Eagles have the game in hand on Dallas, I think you have to look at the Giants and say, that's the team that you got to worry about the rest of the way. But I mean, I don't know. You definitely have to at least acknowledge that the Giants are there and breathing right down your neck. So that's the Giants. Dallas, they take another loss to their father, Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers, which actually I think is just going to lead me right into our Dumbass of the Day segment. The way this game ended was a debacle, okay, on both sides. This was just what you call a refusal to win, right? You take it. No, you take it. No, you take it. No, I insist. You take it. So let's start with Green Bay, okay? They get the ball back at the end of the game. It's a tie game, right? 28-28. They get the ball back at their own 33 with 1 minute and 38 seconds left. You're the coach. You have Aaron Rodgers. What's your game plan there? You go down there and you try to get the game-winning field goal, right? You have 2 timeouts and 1:38 with Aaron Rodgers. All you need to do is get in a field goal. Pretty simple. No. Instead, they do a quick run to the left, okay? 2 yards. 43 seconds then took off the clock. That's a little bit strange, I think. Then they run it again with Aaron Jones for 7 yards. Now, it's short of a first. It's third down, 3rd and 1. But, okay, I guess they're milking the clock. They're just going to take it to OT. I mean, I disagree, but that's their plan. Okay, there's 30 seconds left. Timeout. Huh? Hold on a second. Maybe Dallas is looking to get a stop here and get the ball back before overtime. No, Green Bay called the timeout? What the hell is going on here? Are they trying to milk the clock? or they try to drive down and score. So 3rd and 1, no, they don't run to get the first down and milk more clock. Instead, they throw a pass, goes incomplete. Now the clock stopped again. And you give Dallas the ball back before going to overtime. And Dallas obviously didn't do anything before overtime. But Aaron Rodgers came off the field and he was furious with Matt LaFleur. I mean, you saw him screaming at him, getting all these clown wig hairs in my mouth. You saw him screaming at him on the sideline. And look, I think Aaron Rodgers is a jackass, but I totally understand why he had beef with Matt LaFleur there. I mean, that was just completely ridiculous handling of the end of the game. We use the phrase "wanted it more" a lot in sports. Luckily for Green Bay, Dallas wanted it less, okay? Because you go to overtime. Let's fast forward to overtime. And look, I understand how the overtime rules work. You want to get to the touchdown, be aggressive because the game's on the line. You want to win the coin flip, really is what you want to do. However, Dallas has a good defense. Granted, it wasn't great that day, but the Cowboys drove all the way down to Green Bay 35. They won the coin toss. Well within their kicker Maher's range, right? Well within his range. He's got a pretty big leg. Go for the field goal to get 3 points on the board and put your defense out there to make one last stop on a Green Bay Packers Aaron Rodgers offense that all season pretty much up to this game had been struggling when they really needed to. No, they didn't do that. Mike McCarthy decides to go for it, which hilariously fails. And TK, let's we'll cue this up here for everybody. We got the Mike McCarthy headsets, like because they gave it right back to Green Bay. They promptly marched down the field, kicked the game-winning field goal. Just epic. Just an epic headset spike there from Mike McCarthy. Oh, it's good stuff, man. It's been a while since we've watched Dallas taking a seriously embarrassing L at the hands of a team that they absolutely shouldn't have. But that was great. And it would have been a lot better had the Eagles turned around and won on Monday night, giving us a little bit more of a cushion, but they didn't. So now Dallas takes their 3rd loss. It's 2 more than we have. We also have a game in hand, as I mentioned, but this leads us to a bit of a conundrum here because we now have the same record as Minnesota after they beat the Bills, which was just an amazing game. Justin Jefferson, incredible catch, great overtime game. Josh Allen blew it, but that was one of those games that were like, man, like football season. Like we're in the thick of football season. There's another one of those big matchups because 2 teams breathing down our necks in the NFC are the Cowboys and the Vikings. And guess who plays each other this week? Yep. Cowboys and the Vikings. Well, this is a massive NFC matchup. The ramifications of the results of this game could change the playoff picture drastically by the time it comes down to tiebreakers at the end of the season, whatnot. Not only for Dallas and Minnesota, but for us as well, right? Because of our tiebreakers with Dallas and Minnesota. We're all the top 3 teams right now. But who do we want to win? You guys let me know in the comments who you want to win, but I'll give you my thoughts on who I want to win. TK, who do you want to win the game?
It's such a good question,
right?
The Cowboys win. They're a game closer or a half game closer.
Yep.
However, now the Vikings are with 2 losses, but if the Vikings win, they're still right there lock and step with you, which puts the pressure on you. It really is tough.
So the mathematical answer is
tie.
Yeah, right. Well, the mathematical answer is not only a tie, but I guess you want Minnesota to lose because they have the same record as us, and you want a little bit of breathing room. You already have more breathing room when it comes to Dallas, considering the game in hand, and you have the 3.
They'll have the same record, right? Dallas and Minnesota.
No, so Dallas has 3 losses currently. Minnesota has 1.
Oh, okay.
So,
right.
Look, I understand this logic, the mathematical thing, right? I get it. Wasn't great at math in high school and in college, but I do understand that aspect of it. But look, when the game starts, I'm just physically incapable of rooting for the Cowboys. I mean, Dak throws a pick. I'm going to be happy, right? I'm going to be excited. Yeah. Dallas scores a touchdown. I groan. I get upset. I can't stand it. I can't physically bring myself to actually root for the Cowboys when the clock starts until the clock hits 0. So what I'm here to do right now is I'm going to talk myself and you into rooting for the Minnesota Vikings and why it's okay for them to win here. Okay. Winning the division for us is extremely important, especially considering when you have Dallas and the Giants right behind us. This could be the difference from being the 1 or 2 seed to now all of a sudden the 5th seed at best.
Wow.
If you don't win the division, right? Because you don't win the division, now all of a sudden you have to go in as at least a wild card. So you need to win the division. That's first and foremost. Now consider the fact that we do have another game coming up versus the Cowboys, right? If we take care of our own business in that game, I should say, is in our control, right? Like that's a game that we control the outcome of. We don't have to hope for one team to lose or beat another one. That's a game that if we win, we get the win. Dallas gets the loss. Bang, boom. That's huge. But then you also consider this. The Vikings' next opponents leading to the end of the season. Patriots, the Jets, Lions, Colts, Giants, Packers, and Bears. I think that's considerably tougher than the Cowboys' schedule of the Giants, Colts, Texans, Jaguars, Eagles, Titans, Commanders. The Bears are going to have the Packers, who I think are finally hitting their stride, and it's a division game. It's going to be in Lambeau Field and then in Chicago. The Bears have been playing really well lately. The Cowboys, the Giants, Eagles, Commanders, yeah, those will be tough. But the Colts, Texans, Jags, Titans, they'll play the entire AFC South. But they haven't played anybody in the AFC South yet, and that's probably one of the worst divisions in football. So I think the Vikings have a considerably tougher schedule coming up. So really, if we take care of our business, I think Eagles fans can feel just fine rooting for the Cowboys to lose. I say go right ahead. Go right ahead and root for the Cowboys to lose. Not that big of a deal. As long as we take care of business, it is fine. All right. Let's shift focus to the Colts, who, yeah, they're the reason I'm wearing this clown nose and the wig. I had the worst take of the week. I said, slam the Raiders, even by 6.5, mind you. Man, they didn't even get the win. If you lost money, sorry, but you shouldn't have taken gambling advice from some guy on the internet in a clown suit in the first place. And just, what the hell, Raiders? You freaking screwed me. You suck. Josh Daniels, you're a fraud who was propped up by Bill Belichick for years. Derek Carr, you're a crybaby loser, literally a crybaby. He got up on the podium and cried after the game. Get it together, dude. Play better football. Beat the freaking stinking Colts who suck and have a half a head coach and no play caller. I freaking can't stand the Raiders. And me, well, I'm the clown who said to bet on them. So there you have that. Yeah, don't bet on the Raiders, and maybe don't listen to me from now on the rest of the way. All right, we have a game coming up here on Sunday, a game that the Eagles, I would say, desperately need to win. You don't want to lose 2 games after starting 8-0. Then the fraud talk will amp up real quick for our Birds. So, DK, I'm going to throw you a quick trivia question. Not a quick trivia question. It's kind of a 3-parter. We'll see. We'll test your old NFL knowledge here. Okay, your NFL history. If anyone's listening, I'll give them a chance to comment along and see what their answer is. So this does have to do with the Colts, not the Eagles, but the Colts. The 1958 NFL Championship, TK, was known as the greatest game ever played. And it was the Colts facing off in the NFL title game against, you know who it is?
What was the first Super Bowl? This is not Super Bowl 3, right?
No, this is 1958. The first Super Bowl was in 67.
Okay.
You don't think you know it? If anyone wants to try to get it in the comments, you can. Who did the Colts face? Who won the game? And why did they refer to it as the greatest game ever played? You can, if you can get any of those, you will get a high five next time I see you.
Colts lost.
That? No.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, wait. Yes, they did. No, they didn't.
All right.
Good job.
It was a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, it's a good try, but they didn't. So let's get into those Colts. Jeff Saturday's Colts, if you will. If you're the Colts and you're a former offensive lineman in Jeff Saturday, and you've watched the Eagles tape, and you have Jonathan Taylor, how are you going to attack this Eagles defense? Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious, right? You're going to run the ball. And if you're Jonathan Gannon, what are you going to do this week? Well, clearly they decided that it was a personnel issue, and Howie Roseman said that, well, I'm not going to let that be an issue anymore, at least. So they wanted to sign some more big body guys. They got Linval Joseph, 34, fresh off of nowhere. He was not on a roster. So I'm not sure what football shape he's even going to be in, considering he hasn't played for a while. And he's 34. And then look, I mean, we just traded for Robert Quinn, and he's been pretty much invisible. And he's an older guy, too. He's here to rush the passer, though. So they got Linval Joseph. And then just today, they signed Ndamukong Suh. Now, Ndamukong Suh is more of a Fletcher Cox type. He's more of a pass rushing type defensive tackle, although he is a big body, a guy that can clog up the middle, open up gaps for the linebackers behind you. Now, this makes me wonder if part of this is to just, for the first few weeks at least, before the guys get acclimated, just give them a few snaps so that Fletcher Cox isn't playing 70 snaps like he was in this most recent game and now has to be on a short week. And Matt is correct that it is the New York Giants who they played. The Colts did win. And not because it was sudden death overtime, but it was the first playoff game decided in sudden death overtime. Greatest game ever played. Now, if you watch the highlights, and I mean, it was like the final game-winning play was like a run up the middle between the tackles. It's like boring. Okay, whatever. There's been plenty of greater games played since 1958. I can pretty much guarantee you. Although the Boomers might yell at me for that, or I guess it's beyond the Boomers. Or the Boomers are too young for the greatest game ever played. So
they're not, are they?
Sure.
What a boomer. Am I a boomer? I don't even know.
No, I don't think so. You got to be a millennial. How old are you, TK?
41.
I don't know.
Borderline.
Yeah.
I'm an ass.
This is an Eagles podcast, TK, not
My apologies.
But yeah, so Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, clearly they're trying to address this personnel issue. I'm not sure how quickly we're going to see any fruits of these signings. Probably not very quick. This week is probably going to be a little bit of a struggle against Jonathan Taylor. But what they can do this week, maybe go an extra linebacker. I mean, they've been running a lot of 5-2 with just 2 linebackers and 5 down linemen. Maybe you see a shift to a 4-3. And instead of just Kaiser White and TJ Edwards out there, you see maybe 3rd-round pick Nakobe Dean out there, a guy who wants to just fly and tackle people and lay the wood. And, look, I mean, you have the secondary to trust, even without Avonte, to run a 4-3. So I think maybe that's something you'll see Jonathan Gannon try to do. Now, if you're the Eagles, you're going to want to get back to what you've been doing. You want to get a fast start on offense, and that'll allow you to control more clock while running the ball well ahead. It stops the Colts from being able to run the ball as much, of course, because they'll be playing from behind. And then it allows your defense to do what they do best and do what they were built to do, and that's play with a lead and pin their ears back, rush the quarterback. And you got old-ass Matt Ryan, who just simply doesn't have the arm anymore. He'll turn the ball over. And, I mean, look, he's going to be trying to move the ball quickly down the field, get the ball out of his hands super quick. So the Eagles are going to have to get them in those 3rd and long situations so that he's going to have to sit back there and let the offense open up for them or attempt to open up for them. And that's where we're going to be able to feast on sacks, turnovers, etc. So before I give you my prediction, and then we'll get out of here to catch up on some Thursday night football. Who's the guy that pronounces people dead? Is that the coroner? Coroner pronounces someone dead. I think it's the coroner, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll say it's the coroner for our purposes. We'll be the coroner here, okay? Because I want to look at some teams around the league. We'll see if we're gonna pronounce them dead or not. They're on life support. We'll see if they're still kicking, or if we'll pronounce them dead. So when I was doing some prep for this segment, I of course wasn't going to run through every single team in the NFL. Wanted to see which teams had the most compelling storylines, the most iffy, one way or the other. And when I was preparing for this segment, I was picking which teams I thought would be the most interesting. And I looked at the Patriots, or I thought about the Patriots, who are 5-4. Patriots are in the 7th seed right now in the AFC. If the playoffs were to start today, the Patriots would be the 7th seed. So very much alive, the New England Patriots. Right behind them, Chargers, Bengals, who I think everybody would say are definitely still alive, considering they're right there. Bengals were just in the Super Bowl last season. Chargers a little bit banged up, but they might get healthy. Justin Herbert's still the QB. So they have a shot. But now, right behind them, guess who? The Colts. 4-5-1 because they just got a win. So now, are the Colts dead? Well, if we beat them, probably, right? Let's be real. When we beat them, I hope. We'll see if Tennessee wins tonight. That'll obviously make a little bit of a difference there and whether they're going for the division or going for a wild card. It's crazy to even talk about that with the Colts right now and what they just did. But they are currently sitting at 4-5-1, and the Titans lead the division at 6-3. So there's a short path there for the Colts. The Colts are, however, they're gasping for air. Not dead yet, gasping for air though. Now, what do we make of the Denver Broncos? The Denver Broncos are dead. Okay, I'm here to declare the Denver Broncos dead. 3-6. Russell Wilson stinks. Now all of a sudden they're getting banged up. Nathaniel Hackett can't hack it. Just thought of that one off the top of my head. The guy stinks. He can't coach. The rest of their schedule is pretty damn tough. They still have the Chiefs twice, I believe, and the Chargers once more. That's probably going to be 3 more losses right there. I don't see the Broncos being able to sneak in the AFC with 9 losses, and that's just at the minimum, I think. So I am going to declare Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos very happily. I will happily declare them dead. Now let's shift over to the NFC because I think that's it for the really only, the teams that are kind of hovering around 500. You got the Browns. I don't think anybody's buying into anything the Browns are doing. I know they'll have Deshaun Watson coming back, but between the Bengals and the Ravens and the rest of the AFC, I just don't see any path for the Browns to be able to get it. So cut the AFC there. NFC, now you can look at Washington at 5-5 and say they're alive. They just beat the 8-1 Eagles, right? They definitely think that they still have a shot at making the playoffs. Now, we'll know a lot more about how much they think they have a chance at making the playoffs by whether they switch back to Carson Wentz this week or not, because, that would be waving the white flag if you ask me. Carson Wentz stinks. They clearly should switch it over to Taylor Heineke. But Washington at 5-5, look, they're alive. There's a path. The NFC's a little top heavy, I think, this year, at least if you're looking at it in terms of record. The lower seed wild cards, I think, are still up for grabs. So that brings us to the 4-6 Packers. Dead? They have a tough path because they almost certainly won't win the division with Minnesota sitting at 8-1. They could try to sneak into the 7th seed, which is currently occupied by the 49ers. But I do think by the end of the season, it will be occupied by the Seahawks when all is said and done. So maybe there's a path there for the Packers to jump in ahead of Seattle. But the Packers are one of those teams who are gasping for air. And yet again, we'll find out more about their chances tonight. They play the Tennessee Titans. The 4-6 Falcons, not dead. No, they're dead. I'm declaring the Falcons dead. The Bucs are 5-5 and Atlanta's 4-6. So mathematically very much still alive for the division. But I'm declaring the Atlanta Falcons dead. Marcus Mariota is garbage. I don't know if anyone saw that pass attempt that he had on Thursday Night Football last week where he's literally rolling on his back. If I were Arthur Smith, I would have benched him immediately. I get that they're this close to having a division lead, but man, that's inexcusable. The Bucs do seem to be starting to hit somewhat of a stride. They now have 2 wins in a row. One of them was against Seattle. It was a pretty good record this year. So I think the Bucs are going to win that division. I don't see a path for the Falcons to squeak in through the wild card, especially with how crowded it's going to be, considering the Niners, Packers, Seahawks, who I think are all going to be fighting for that last wild card spot. So I'm going to declare the Atlanta Falcons dead. And then finally, there's one more team I wanted to get to in the NFC. And it's obvious, but it's worth mentioning. The Rams. The Rams are dead as hell. 3-7, third place in the division. Cooper Kupp is injured. They've been atrocious, and it's crazy. They just won the Super Bowl. And they're awful. People bitched about the Eagles dropping off. So, oh man, the Eagles made the playoffs the next year, won a playoff game. There was at least a more linear decline for the Eagles team.
A dropped ball away from possibly winning 2 playoffs.
That's exactly right. And the Rams, they're not even going to make the playoffs this season, and they don't have any first-round picks for the next few years. Their owner or their GM said F them draft picks, and yeah, they won a Super Bowl. But man, when people bitch about Howie, the way he builds teams, you could be the Rams, and that's a true one-off.
Does anybody bitch about Howie?
Yes, some idiots. But yeah, I mean, it's just nuts what's going on with the Rams right now. 3-7 after having just won the Super Bowl, and I am declaring the Rams dead. All right. Thursday Night Football is coming right up. Before I do that, let me give you a final score. TK, what do you think is going to happen here? How do you think this game goes? Final score, Eagles and Colts in Indianapolis.
Eagles 35, Indy 21. Kind of a boring score.
Okay, well, no, I don't think it's boring. Now, do you think that's a 21 because the Colts are hanging around, or that's sort of a backdoor 21?
Probably 14 and then a backdoor to make
Okay.
it 21.
So I think this could be another similar situation to the Washington game where we see the Colts hang around a little bit in the beginning of the game. I still think the Eagles are going to have to make this adjustment. It might take a little bit, but I think they will again by the second half. They'll get out ahead. The Colts won't be able to run the ball as much as they were in the first half, and the Eagles are going to win 31-20. And I won't be wearing this freaking stupid thing next week. Maybe we'll be wearing it at some point at the end of the season, though. We'll see. We'll see how the rest of this Eagles season plays out. We'll update you on that, of course. I know everyone's dying to see me in the clown suit. TK, thanks for producing the show tonight, my friend. Everybody, thanks for tuning in, listening, commenting along, and talking some birds with me. So go Birds. Hopefully they win this week. You can't lose to Jeff Saturday and the freaking Colts, or I'll be here in major panic mode this week. And we don't want that. We don't want me here in panic mode.
Nope.
That's for sure. So thanks again, everybody. I'm Kyle Quinn signing off, saying go Birds. Take it away, TK.